And thank you for being masked. That is the rule that we are following. Just so that everyone understands, we are required to hold these meetings live. That's the Open Meetings Act. There was a suspension of that rule or that statute that ended earlier this year. And there have been a number of us who've asked that it be reinstituted so that people could feel more comfortable and wouldn't feel that they are being put at risk by coming to the meetings. But for now, we are following the law, so we will be holding our meetings live, and we're grateful that you could be here. We're going to try to articulate as best we can through the masks, so we'll get through this together. I want to ask our town manager to take us through the announcements first, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. First of all, this Wednesday, October 6th at 4:30, there'll be an outdoor movie night at the library, just behind the library. That's at 4:30 this Wednesday. This coming Saturday will be the Great Pumpkin Harvest Party, and that's going to be from 1:30 to 4 p.m. On Monday, October 11th, Columbus, from 12 to 4 p.m. We'll meet here in front of Town Hall. We have 7 projects out in town where we're going to help elderly and disabled folks with their yard work. It's all going to be outdoor work, and we're looking for a labor force. So if you're available on Monday afternoon, please meet us here at noon. We'll put you to work. Community Shred is going to be Saturday, October 30th from 9 to 11:30 at the DPW garage. If you have any shredding you need done, just throw it in your car and bring it over and we'll get it shredded for you. Senior tax exemption forms are due on Sunday, October 31st for all senior tax exemptions. And finally, our tree planting and removal to date this year, annually, we've removed 80 trees and we planted 93 trees. That's all I have, Mr. President.
Thank you. Before we get into our consent agenda, I wanted to give an opportunity to members of the council to highlight anything that they felt they wanted to draw attention to that is in the consent agenda. If you want to have a separate vote on something, we can certainly remove it as we do in the normal course. But I thought this would be an opportunity for us to highlight anything. And I'll start. We just finished last month, September. These are folks I've often said who we don't really appreciate until we need them. Our fire department and our police department. And we often encounter them when we're at our worst. And when we're at our worst, they're at their best. So we spent last month trying to show our appreciation, but we ought not to do that just once a year. We ought to try to, for all of us, even those of us who just see them going by and it's fortunately not them coming to our house, we ought to try and show our appreciation for them and for the great job attention to. Yes, Jacob.
I had a question on the HR report, but it's not something that'll change a vote, so I thought I'd say it now rather than pull it.
Okay.
I saw that the negotiations had begun for the union contract. And I was curious what the timeline is for them and if it's something that the new town manager tracks because they start 6 months into next year.
We have successfully negotiated tentative agreements with all 4 collective bargaining in the executive session at the November meeting.
Okay.
Anything else? Okay. The next several items on our agenda are what we call the consent agenda. These are items that are usually considered routine and will be enacted by one motion. There won't be a separate discussion on these items unless a council member or a citizen so requests in the requested item and vote on the remainder of the consent agenda and then address that any council member would like to remove from the consent agenda for a separate vote. Okay, any citizen? Okay. Do I have a motion to accept the consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Great. Next item on our agenda is to discuss and act on interviews and appointments. The first one. So before we even get into these, we had a late addition. We have found out about it. We could not vote to add that person tonight because they're not on here. We could interview them and then postpone the vote until later. But I wanted to see whether the council had any interest in today. I'm not sure he's here. Matt? No. No. Okay, so he is not here.
Well, Mr. Amaral did reach out to me. I'm familiar with him. He's in a commission. I think he's done an excellent job. He is running multiple businesses, and it was an oversight on his part. And I would favor interviewing him at the next meeting, and then making our appointment then, not necessarily because I favor him over another candidate, but I would give him that opportunity. I understand that there can be different views on this.
Mhm.
I wanted, the only thing I indicated to Mr. Amaral was that I would bring this forth to the council and survey, with the president's approval, the opinion of my colleagues on the subject.
So since he's not here this evening, we wouldn't be interviewing him, but we could certainly postpone it depending on the will of the council, postpone a final decision. That is interview the folks who are here, and item is not, we could also interview that person at our next meeting too.
I think the only thing I'd say is I do think we should at least interview the folks who are here tonight, who've taken time out of their evening to be here. And I'm a bit indifferent either way. So if that's what Mr. Costello recommends, that sounds fine to me.
Okay. So why don't we interview the folks who are here, and then we'll decide whether we're going to vote tonight. And then if we do decide to vote tonight, we'll make a vote. Is Ann Hoff here this evening? Ms. Hoff, could you please come forward? Thank you for coming in tonight. Yes, please. Could you tell us a little about yourself and what you hope to bring to Discover Newport?
Yes. So I work peripherally with Discover Newport through my role at RIMTA, the Rhode Island Marine Trades Association. Our missions are very similar. We promote the state as a destination, both nationally and internationally. My role is more towards the boating industry, and we know that.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
The boating industry.
Yes.
In Rhode Island. And we know that the boating industry and water tourism, my understanding is that they're looking for someone to represent Barrington and the happenings of our town, as well as promote Newport and the 9 surrounding areas as a destination. I think it's a good way for me to kind of bring together my personal and professional interests in a unique way.
Okay. Thank you. Does anyone have any questions? So I noticed that you did you checked the box that's
Right.
I guess the concern that I would have is, and I don't know when they might diverge, the interests of the trade association might not be the same as Barrington. The question is, whose interests would.
By the Evan Smith from Discover Newport, because we work hand in hand. I would be putting the interests of the town before the association, obviously,
Okay.
in this role.
Okay, great. Thank you. Is Elisa Iacono Mears here? Please. Did I say your name correctly?
You didn't, but that's okay. It's Iacono Mears.
Iacono, okay,
Yes.
Iacono Mears.
Yeah.
Ms. Iacono Mears, could you tell us a little about yourself and what you hope to bring to
Sure.
Discovery?
Elisa Iacono Mears. I am a longtime resident of Barrington, native Rhode Islander. We moved family here in 2005, during which time I did a lot of volunteering in the schools when my kids were younger, and now they're in high school. I work in events has allowed me to work with events in every region of the state. And I thought this would be a great fit. Try and bring it to Barrington residents, the resources that Discover Newport can offer us, in showcasing our town with the help of Discover Newport. So that was kind of where I'm coming from for it. I'd love to help the whole town and see where it goes.
Great, thank you. Any questions? No questions? Thank you very much, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, so the first question for us is, do we vote tonight? Or do we hear another applicant? Jacob?
Yes, I mean, I think we have two qualified applicants who applied on time. I'd be happy with appointing either of them. I also know that Matt Amaral would be a great representative, but there is a deadline and it was missed. And I would lean toward appointing somebody tonight.
Okay. So I guess we could do this by motion. If you want to make Carl, if you wanted to make a motion to continue the decision on this to our November meeting, we could do it that way.
I think that if we were to make an exception for an individual, it should be something there's a consensus on the council. Vice President Hum has expressed indifference, and Councilor Breyer has expressed opposition. I will not be making that motion.
Okay. Does anyone want to make a motion then to appoint our representative, Barrington's representative, to Discover Newport?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to approve or appoint Ann Hoff as Barrington's representative on the Discover Newport Board with a term to expire August 31st, 2021.
Okay, motion's been made. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Thank you both. And Ms. Iacono Mears, now that I have pronounced your name correctly the second time, and now that we've seen you, you may be getting calls for other volunteer opportunities.
Absolutely.
Thanks. Next item on our agenda is the Economic Development Commission. We have 3 vacancies for 3 full members. And the first interview is Mr. Kijkstra. David?
President Carroll, I will need to recuse.
Okay.
As do I.
You got it, by the way. Scared them away.
Members have to recuse if they have a business relationship of any kind with their members. So
It's fine.
don't take offense.
No?
So could you tell us a little about yourself and what you hope to bring to EDC?
Yeah, so frankly, I've had no experience in working in community like this. I'm very green. I come from Michigan. I am not a Rhode Islander. I'm not haven't been here my whole life. In fact, I've been here since January. So my wife and I started a small business in town, and we had a sales goal to hit by June, and we had a whole goal to hit by December, and we hit December's goal by June, actually. So business has been great. Community loves us. Some of the things we do is working with community donations and those types of things. What we would like to see in our community where we live is other businesses being able to come and do the same thing we are, both not only for individual families, but for community growth as well. It's kind of what I could see happening. How that goes, I don't know.
Great. Great. Well, thank you. Any questions? Thank you very much.
Yep.
Kevin Mannering, please. Mr. Mannering, tell us a little about yourself and what you can bring to EDC.
Sure, thank you. My name's Kevin Mannering. My wife and I bought a house here in Barrington in August of 2020. We're raising our daughter. I'm a co-owner of a business that helps consumer packaged good entrepreneurs with both software as a service as well as hands-on product development, logistics, and sourcing. And we've been able to help a lot of small businesses sort of get up off the ground. I mentor a lot of entrepreneurs nationwide, but this being sort of the place where we're going to raise our family, and I wanted to get involved in the community more locally, and just sort of really help folks around here that are thinking of starting a business, or developing events that might be able to sort of facilitate entrepreneurship in the area. So that's where I'm coming from.
Great. Any questions? Thank you very much for your willingness to serve.
Of course, thank you.
Adam Milikowski, please. Thank you for coming in, sir. Please tell us a little about yourself and
Sure.
why you're interested in EDC.
Yeah. Me and my wife have lived here since 2014. We're currently raising our family here still. She's a part owner in a small business here in town. And I'd like to take a part in, helping the town develop its business opportunities a little bit more, and make it a better place, basically.
Great. Well, thank you very much. Any questions? Thank you for your willingness to serve as well.
Thank you.
Okay. We have 3 openings, 3 qualified candidates for 3 vacancies. Does anyone want to make a motion?
Sure, I'll make a motion to approve David Quickstra, Kevin Mannering, and Adam Milikowski, and apologies if I mispronounce anyone's name, as full members of the Economic Development Commission, with a term to expire I need to withdraw my motion, Mike. We have 2 different terms. And I'm not sure I follow. So we have 3 candidates.
Oh, yes. Okay.
We have 3 candidates for 2.
Okay. We have, let's see, how many do we have, Mary, that expire in 2022, and how many expire in 2024?
One for October 31st, 2022, and 2 for January 31st.
Okay. Okay. Does anyone want to make a motion to appoint a full member with an expiration date of October 31, 2022?
I will make a motion to appoint David Quickstra as a full member to the Economic Development Commission with a term to expire on October 31st, 2022.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And we have 2 recusals. And now, would you like to make the next motion?
Sure, I'll make the next motion to appoint Kevin Mannering and Adam Milikowski as full members of the Economic Development Commission.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
That motion carries 2 recusals. Okay, thank you all so much for volunteering. We really appreciate it. And you will get an email with the next date. And we'll give our colleagues a moment to get back up here for our next item on the agenda. So the next item on the agenda is Senior Services Advisory Board. We have two vacancies, one for a full member and one for a second alternate. We don't have any interviewees tonight, but we've already interviewed Virginia Mead at our last meeting. And since then, we haven't had any additional applicants. So if we're all comfortable with Ms. Mead's interview, does anyone want to make a motion?
I would move to appoint Virginia Mead to the Senior Services Advisory Board.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And that motion carries. If she didn't want to be appointed, she should have showed up. So she gets appointed.
She's right there.
Thank you very much. Next item on our agenda is public comment. This is a 3-minute statement, an opportunity for the public to speak regarding a topic that is not already on the agenda. If you would like to speak, please say so by raising your hand, and when you're recognized, state your name and residency for the record. And Mary's also put a sheet up there, if you could fill that out with your name. Would anyone like to be heard for public comment? Yes, sir, please. Yes, please, right here.
My name is Peter Breen. I live at 150 Promenade Street here in Barrington. I'm here tonight for twofold. One, I'd like to, well, three perhaps. I'd like to thank the many members of this council for their letters and emails of sympathy and support for the difficulties that my family has endured this last 9 months. I'd also like to express my gratitude and support for the efforts of this council to make Barrington a more welcoming place for families of diversity. I've had the opportunity to watch the council do its business a few times now through the Zooms, and I'm grateful, and I've always noticed the civility and professionalism with which all residents are treated regardless of their point of view on any issue. As a lifelong resident of Rhode Island, when my family got a little larger and my house at the time seemed a little smaller, my dear departed father said to me, "Move to Barrington." I thought that was aspirational. I am a man of humility and gratitude, and I am extremely grateful to have been able to bring my family here to Barrington. I considered it in many ways mission accomplished. My children would go to good schools, my wife would live in a nice house, things would go well for us, and for many, many years, they did. Recently, I contracted COVID-19. My son as well, very difficult. As you may know, I have a petition pending before the Zoning Board of Review. The zoning board meeting last Thursday was 2 days after I was tested positive for COVID. My attorney, who I have retained to assist me in my petition, notified the zoning board that I had tested positive. He informed them my wife would come in my stead. The same state regulations which allow my 13-year-old daughter to continue to attend public school because she is vaccinated, but prevent my 10-year-old son because he is not, I believed were in effect for that meeting. And my wife, who is vaccinated, summed up her courage to attend the meeting in my place in case testimony was asked. Unfortunately, the zoning board apparently objected to her presence at the meeting. She was not asked to produce her vaccination card to show that she was in compliance with the state regulations. Nobody suggested perhaps things be continued because they felt uncomfortable perhaps with state regulations. Again, and I understand 2 days is not a long time to think about these things. Instead, unfortunately, I'm very, very sad to say, to be here tonight, to say, I believe she was treated very poorly. She came home in tears, devastated. She said, and I quote, "I saw not 1 ounce of human compassion in the eyes of any of those gentlemen." She was, in fact, asked to leave, to get up and walk out in front of all the residents who were in attendance that night. It was, in effect, a walk of shame. And it had, I hope, the unintended consequences of exposing her to yet more ridicule and harassment from the very person that I built my fence that is not in compliance to protect her from. I am deeply disappointed that this is the way that a resident was treated by a board here in Barrington, Rhode Island, a place which all my life I thought of as the pinnacle of what's good in this state. It was shocking to me that no one at that time perhaps raised their hand to stop what apparently was some really brutal rhetoric that was hurled towards both my wife and my attorney, who also was asked to leave said meeting. And again, I'd like to state, I believe my wife was not in violation of the state regulations, the same regulations which allow my 13-year-old to go to school. So I have to ask, why did this happen? You know, the words of sympathy and support are very, very much appreciated. Next on your agenda after public comment is an indication that perhaps many people feel that the remedies that theoretically could be applied to mitigate a situation such as my family is going through are wanting. And again, I'm grateful beyond words for the civilized, professional practice, demeanor, behaviors of this council, of the Barrington Police Department, but I was really disappointed at the way that we were treated by the zoning board last Thursday night. Though I was not there, I had my wife who was devastated, and also the events of the evening were recounted to me by my attorney. It is my understanding that this board plays a role of oversight over the board, and I'm simply here tonight to express my disappointment with how we were handled last Thursday. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Breen. Is there anyone else who would like to make a public comment? Please come forward.
I don't have a pen to write on that, but my name's Catherine Quinn. I live at 23 Brown Ave, and I wanted to thank Mr. Breen for speaking out, and I felt obligated to step up and verify the information that he provided. I was at the zoning board meeting to support Candace, his wife. It was a very, very uncomfortable situation for her to be here in. I was with her and witnessed her lawyer and herself being shamed and chided and reprimanded for having even come into this room as if they were not even worthy of any kind of human dignity. Really, it was shocking. We left. When we went outside, the other resident who was involved in the hearing mocked us as she drove by. And subsequently this weekend, we had another incident on Promenade Street where that same resident verbally and physically aggressively approached some of the residents on the street who were simply talking about some of the incidences that have been going on amongst themselves on their own property, on the street, away from that resident. The police came, and their main concern was to keep the residents who were discussing these issues contained. They were trying to protect the other resident and keep us all from disrupting the peace. I was told that I was kind of disrupting the peace, even though I was the one that was getting screamed at, and which I have on video. The police were called by a neighbor to help me because I was being assaulted by this person. And when the police came, they threatened to arrest me for trespassing on the Breen's property when I was a guest at their house with my car parked in the yard. So I want to just encourage you I was going to encourage you to, take some time and energy to look at what's going on Promenade Street. But also at the way that the police responded, it was not acceptable. There was no police brutality, and I'm very grateful that I don't have to worry about getting thrown to the ground by the police. But the focus of their energy and the containment that they were involved in was absolutely inappropriate. They were on the wrong side of history. And currently, Barrington's zoning board, Barrington's town council, I think the town council has done a lot of things that look good, creating a DEI committee, putting up a sign that says Barrington is for everyone, and the town manager flew a Black Lives Matter flag very controversially over our town hall. And there's been a lot of outrage about that. But I want to ask that if Black Lives Matter and Barrington is for everyone, why isn't anyone helping this family, which actually has 3 Black residents in it? There is not one person of color in this room, as far as I could tell. Our town is 93% white. I am also white. I'm not shaming anybody here. I'm not ashamed or, angry that you aren't, a person of color on the town council. But it's our job to amplify the voices of the people who are underrepresented in our town and less of a presence in positions of power. So I want to ask you to do something for this family. I also will say that I returned to that zoning board meeting once I had the Rhode Island Health Department's regulations about quarantining and COVID, because I wasn't aware that they were violating the Open Meetings Act by kicking Candace and her lawyer out at the time. And I was only concerned about supporting her. So I came back and tried to make a public comment to them, sharing with them directly off of my phone what information I had just become aware of, because I was really glad to have it. I thought they'd be interested. And the disdain, anger, and aggressive response that I received from the vice president or vice chair of the zoning board was appalling. He threw his papers down, yelled at me, and threatened to leave the meeting, which, I didn't have a problem with him threatening to leave the meeting, but throwing your papers down and scolding someone for coming in and bringing important information is undignified and unbecoming of our board members. So please do something to help the Breen family and show us that Barrington is for everyone and that Black lives do matter.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to be heard for public comment? Okay, seeing none, we will move on to our next agenda item. We're going to move on to our next agenda item, which is to discuss and act on a anti-harassment legislation resolution. This is a matter that Councilor Conway and I have worked on. It's an issue for some folks in Barrington who are subjected to harassment, which does not rise to the level. The question is whether there ought to be anything in the Rhode Island laws to address this. It's our position that there ought to be, and there is not. So based on that, we look to our neighbor in Massachusetts who has a very similar statute. The existing laws, Mass General Laws, Chapter 265, Section 43A, criminal harassment punishment. And based on that, we have drafted a proposed amendment to add the criminal offense of harassment to Rhode Island's general laws. This isn't something we did lightly. We're aware of the concerns about First Amendment rights. We don't want someone saying that they're being harassed while someone else is merely exercising their First Amendment rights, which is why we decided to focus very closely on the Massachusetts law, which has a ton of case law after it. That is, it's been interpreted for years and found to be constitutional because it provides some objective criteria that will sort of clarify and not make this simply, I don't like what you're saying, and therefore I'm going to try and get you arrested. So we're proposing this. We don't have the power, obviously, as a town council to pass a law that would affect the state of Rhode Island. We can't pass criminal laws. That's up to our General Assembly, and we hope that our legislators, and I've already spoken with Senator Coyne about this, we hope that our legislators will take this up. We hope that our council, and I want to first give Councilor Conway an opportunity to comment on it and then kind of open it up for the members of the council.
When I think about this, this suggestion, this resolution, it is a common sense resolution in the sense that we have neighbors who have felt targeted, challenged, without any ability to do anything to protect themselves or their family. I think one of the keys that we kept asking ourselves was, why can't something be done? And with the law in Massachusetts, it's clear that there is something that can be done. I think it's really important to read specific parts of willfully and maliciously engaging in a known pattern of conduct or series of acts over that person and would cause a reasonable person to suffer substantial emotional distress. That to me is, this is the right matter of managing through harassment as opposed to having to go to commissions and boards that may frankly just not be prepared to manage the kind of stresses that we're asking or expecting them to. It's not the right place to have a conversation about measurement when you're really talking about someone feeling harassed and targeted and unsafe in their own home. So I think this is a very important piece. I'm thankful for President Carroll's legal background, but in terms of how to protect your family and when you can feel safe in your own home.
Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good.
I'm doing the Day of Caring thing
With Denise?
with Denise, and the
Yep.
other day she just had me plug my MacBook into here. Is that okay? We have a
I
few
think
slides to show.
there's a public hearing first.
Right.
With Kim Jacobs.
Yeah, whenever we go, is it okay to come up? Do you mind helping me do that so I don't screw up everything, or who should I talk to for that?
Have you done it?
When I did it, there was nothing here. We hooked it up, it worked just fine, but there wasn't another computer plugged into it.
Yeah, so let Kim do hers and then you'll
Oh, so
prepare.
this is somebody
that must be
else's report.
Kim's.
Okay, I
Yes.
thought this was like the town
No,
council's.
no,
Okay,
that's
all right, so
Kim's.
when she's done,
So
she'll take it
you'll
away
have-
and then I can
yes,
plug in.
yes,
Okay.
yes,
All right,
yes.
thank you so
And-
much.
And it's Andrew?
Andrew.
Okay, all
Yeah.
right, I'm just trying to remember everything.
Sure, no, I
Okay,
appreciate
thank
it.
you.
Okay, great, thanks a
Andrew
lot. Simon. yeah.
Okay, good.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Yep, okay.
How you doing? How are you? All right, all right.
Is Annalisa going to make it?
Good evening. I'm calling this meeting of the Barrington Town Council to order at 7:02. The other members of the council are present. I would ask that we all stand and you can join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God.
Thank you. Next item on our agenda is announcements, and we'll start with our town manager, please.
Thank you, President Carroll. The Friends of the Library's annual book sale is this coming weekend, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday on the second floor gallery. The annual tree lighting ceremony will take place on Saturday, December 4th. It will be at 5 p.m. And finally, for tree planting and removal to date this calendar year, we have removed 80 trees and we've planted 93 trees. That's all I have.
Thank you. I want to make two additional announcements. The first is a sad one. Early this week, Steve Kirby passed away. Steve was on our cemetery commission, and in addition, he served the town in another way as a music minister at St. Luke's since I was a kid, so about 100 years. So we honor his memory and we're grateful for his service to this community. I also want to comment on the storm that we had. You know, the pictures I'm sure you've all seen of the trees all over the place, just enormous trees. I want to just compliment our DPW. I've heard from some residents who said that they were very quick to respond. No doubt that means other residents will feel they weren't, how wonderful they've been and polite, even though I'm sure they're exhausted after all that work. So I want to commend the professionalism of the DPW and thank you very much. Does anyone else have any announcements or anything they'd like to mention? Okay. The next items on our agenda are what we call the consent agenda. These are items which we consider routine and they'll be enacted by one motion. There won't be a separate discussion on these items unless a council member or a citizen so requests. If that happens, we'll remove that item from the agenda, consider the remaining ones, vote on them, and then we'll address that individual item. Does anyone on the council have anything they'd like to remove from the consent agenda? Okay. Any resident want to remove anything from the consent agenda? Okay, seeing none, do I hear a motion to accept the consent agenda as presented?
So moved. Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. That motion carries 4 with 1 absence. I'd like, without objection, to move a couple of things on the agenda up to the front. The first one is our resolution honoring George Finn, and then the next one is the resolution regarding Bob Corley. Any objection to doing so? Okay. So the first one is on the resolution honoring George Finn, and I would call on Vice President Hum to take us through that.
Sure, thank you. And Mr. Carroll, do you want me to read the resolution or?
That would be great.
Okay. Bear with me for 1 second. I need to pull something up on my phone as well.
That's it.
Okay, thank you. So, whereas Barrington High School Athletic Director George Finn was awarded the Rhode Island Interscholastic League Distinguished Award for the 2020-2021 school year, and whereas Mr. Finn became Barrington High School's athletic director in 1999, and whereas Mr. Finn also serves as the Sports Medicine Advisory Committee Chair of the Rhode Island Interscholastic League. And whereas in 2004, the Rhode Island Interscholastic Athletic Administrators Association named Mr. Finn Athletic Director of the Year. In 2015, the National Interscholastic Athletic Administrators Association awarded Mr. Finn the State Award of Merit. In 2016, and again in 2021, the Rhode Island Interscholastic League named Mr. Finn the Athletic Director of the Year. And in 2017, Mr. Finn was inducted into the Rhode Island Athletic Trainers Association Hall of Fame. And whereas Council wishes to honor and congratulate Mr. Finn for being awarded the 2020-2021 Rhode Island Interscholastic League Distinguished Service Award. Now, therefore, be it the Barrington Town Council, by virtue of the authority vested in them by the citizens of Barrington, honor and congratulate George Finn for being awarded the Rhode Island Interscholastic League Distinguished Service Award for the 2020-2021 school year.
Do I hear a motion to approve the resolution as presented?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That motion carries. I think it's always good to remind ourselves how fortunate we are to live in this community where we have so many really great people who serve our community in a variety of ways and serve our children as well. So could we all give a round of applause for George Finn? George, please come up. Thank you, George. In that same vein of reminding ourselves how fortunate we are, tonight we will also remember Bob Gorley. And to do so, I would ask Tony DeSisto to come forward.
Mike, thank you, and I'll be brief. But just to follow up on your resolution honoring George Finn, there are 27 varsity sports that are offered at the high school. That's amazing for a high school of this size. I don't know how Mr. Finn manages to do it, but he does. And to get that amount of sports for our children here in town takes a lot of dedicated volunteers. One of them was Bob Gorley. Bob was an Air Force veteran, 20 years, and then he had a banking career. But after that, when he retired, he dedicated himself to the throwing events for the track and field program. And it's not one of the most popular sports, but he really did a lot to make that something that was available to both boys and girls. And he had an outstanding record of success. National champions, state champions, all state, all American. I can't even number all of them. And he was very dedicated, and he was good for the kids. And not just the stars, but anyone who went through his program, I think, benefited from it. He spent a lot of time at the field that's just to the north of the DPW facility, right to the east of Upland Way. He used to call it the Hill. And although he was not in the best of health in the last few years, his death a few weeks ago was a shock. And I think it's wholly appropriate that the town recognize to the kids of this town in this sport by renaming that field, or naming the field rather, Bob Gorley Field or Robert Gorley Field, whatever the town feels is most appropriate. I asked how that could be done. Council President Carroll was kind enough to put me on the agenda tonight. And I would ask that the field be named in his honor. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Did Bob leave family?
He has a daughter that's here in town, and he has a son that's down in New York City, I believe. I think in Brooklyn.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments?
And I should say that he had a family of throwers starting from 1983 that he really kept track of, not only while they were throwing here at Barrington High School, but also in college and afterwards too.
Yeah. So his truly extraordinary success has led to people who are nationally ranked. More than one, more than two. I don't know how many there have been, but even recently, I can think of two kids who were nationally ranked. And not just at the national level, but there were schools in Rhode Island where our shot putters couldn't throw. They weren't allowed to throw because they hit the road. So they weren't allowed to throw there. He was that good. And I think we have to recognize too that it's not something in the water here that makes great throwers. It was the dedication of this one coach and the influence he's had on generations of throwers. So I'd like to field in honor of longtime track and field coach Robert Gorley as Robert Gorley Field. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Tony. Okay, now back to our regular order. Next item on the agenda is to discuss and act on interviews and appointments. And the first one is for the Housing Board of Trustees. Thanks for coming in. If you could tell us a little about yourself and what you can bring to Housing Board of Trustees.
Yeah, absolutely. My name's Colby Hanson. My wife and I just moved to Barrington about 3 months ago. Initially, I'm from a small community and grew up in Washington State, in Snohomish, Washington. After that, went to the University of Hawaii at Manoa, where I majored in business management and international business. Through that, it's taken me on a couple of ventures through Hawaiian Airlines and Airport Operations Initiative, and now I am a project manager with Brock Solutions. I'm working remote here in Barrington. We are fortunate to have moved here once again 3 months ago, and we understand the hardship of moving to this town, especially with affordable housing. And we have bounced around a little bit. Most recently, we came from Dallas, where we moved for work and opportunity. So now my wife is currently going to Roger Williams University for law school. I've always had a passion for public service, and now that we've finally figured out where we want to land and set some roots here, I'm very excited to give back, as that's where my passion has been through various volunteering efforts with nonprofits such as Make-A-Wish Foundation, Habitat for Humanity, and other volunteer outreach. So for me, bringing to the table through my current position as a project manager, I've dealt with various airports and airlines across the US and internationally, where I lead and implement technology projects for automation. So through my project management, and that comes with all sorts of financial responsibility and project timelines and deadlines, as well as implementation and training experience from Hawaiian Airlines, where I led various projects and implementation, traveling across the country and internationally to implement large-scale projects. So kind of through all of that, policies and procedure development with various federally regulated manuals, and my experience in automation and implementation, I think I could be, of service, and just through my passion to give back to the community now that we're here.
Great. Well, thank you. First of all, welcome, if you've only been here 3 months. I also, I want to ask, because I asked people from Washington, have you ever heard of Curlew, Washington?
Curlew.
Yeah.
I have not.
Yeah, I haven't found anyone yet who has. My sister was born in Curlew, in a tiny little hospital, and I'm even wondering if the town is for Mr. Hanson. Okay, well, thank you for, oh, sorry.
Yeah, what is Brock Solutions' core business? How would you describe that?
Yeah, so they're a tech engineering company. Their headquarters is in Toronto, Canada. They have various offices around the US, but it's essentially automation for various industries, manufacturing, airports and airlines, water management is kind of all across the board within software and technology. My specialty is airport operations, and so I work very closely with most all the US airlines and account management with them. So basically bag scanning, processing data, and just improving the airport experience for passengers.
And you mentioned Habitat, which is a fantastic organization, obviously. What was your role? If you volunteering for them, or what was your experience with Habitat?
Yeah, so Habitat for Humanity, I did a exchange program, a domestic exchange program to University of Alabama. So through that, they had been devastated a few years prior by a large tornado. So we helped in a volunteer capacity to rebuild those houses.
Yeah, great organization, obviously.
Thank you very much. Does anyone want to make a motion?
I will make a motion to appoint Colby Hanson to the third alternate to the Housing Board of Trustees with a term to expire on October 31, 2024.
Motion's been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Hanson. The next item on our agenda is the Senior Services Advisory Board. We have one vacancy left. We've been fortunate with our appointees in recent months. And I would ask if Teresa Shireman is here. Please come forward. Thank you for coming in, and please tell us about yourself and what you can bring to the Senior Services Board.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here. I'm a professor in the School of Public Health at Brown University, and I happen to be the director of the Center for Gerontology and Healthcare Research. It's about a $25 million research organization that does a lot of work related to care of older adults and trying to maintain activities and services for older adults. And my background is actually in pharmacy. I was a pharmacist for several years in the Midwest, and then I've been in academia for I don't know how many years now, 25 or so. And I've always been committed to trying to improve the health of older adults and try to maintain people at the highest level of functioning if they can, to keep them in their homes, to keep them active and invigorated in their lives. I moved to Barrington 6 years ago and have been mostly engaged in research and teaching activities, and now I would like to bring some of the things that I know on that front to my community, and then take the things that I learned from the community back to my colleagues at work to help make sure that we're doing the right research that will help engage and our older generation. And I think we all want to look forward to having services as we all grow older and be as functional as we can for as long as we can.
Great. I ask you a question. Do you have a research assistant assisting you on any, well, let me ask it this way. My daughter is a research assistant working on Alzheimer's research at the Brown School of Public Health. If she's your research assistant, I would need to recuse. So I just couldn't remember the name of the professor she's working with. Her name is Michaela Carroll.
I do not know Michaela Carroll.
Okay.
The School of Public Health is a pretty big organization. And there's lots of people, not just in the department that I'm in or the center that I'm in, that are engaged in research. I have something on the order of, I think it's like 75 people who work for me at the school.
Okay. Thank you.
But we are actively involved in a lot of Alzheimer's related work. So.
Okay. Any questions? Okay. Thank you for your willingness to serve.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Mike or Solo, that's not, I mean, I couldn't recuse from everybody working at Brown because that's about 10% of the town.
You did not have to recuse.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone want to make a motion?
Sure. I'll move to appoint Teresa Shireman as the second alternate to the Senior Services Advisory Board with a term to expire on February 28, 2024.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further? That motion carries. Thank you very much. And the next item on our agenda is interviews for zoning board. I've lost my place here. Oh, here it is. Got my pages out of order. The first person to be considered is Catherine Quinn. Ms. Quinn, could you come forward, please? Thank you for coming in tonight. Could you tell us a little about yourself and what you hope to bring to zoning board?
Sure. My name is Catherine Quinn. I was born and I've lived in Barrington for about 12 years. Single mom, 3 teenage kids, so 2 16-year-old girls and an 18-year-old boy, so I feel I'm pretty much capable of doing any. I've been following the zoning board's activities with interest for quite some time. I've been interested in bring a little bit of a different perspective. I know there's a lot of architects, lawyers, building contractors, and people like that. I like to look at things through a critical race lens and bring a little bit of historical context to the zone issues that come up. And I also have a pretty common sense sort of approach to things. So I don't really expect to change any of the voting on the zoning ordinance, on the zoning board, but I would like to bring some conversations to the table that have been sort of not welcome for quite some time. And we just recently had a really amazing meeting of the zoning board last month where a bunch of people came and there was some really poignant conversation. So I'd like to just bring some of those conversations to the board, not so much to necessarily affect or change their rulings, but just to have some open conversation in our town, because I feel that often our town is reluctant to talk about race and history and, you know, the nature of this land that we are zoning to protect. And so that's my interest. I graduated from Leadership Rhode Island. I helped to form the Barrington Equity Collective. I'm on the Barrington Partnership African American Ambassadors group in Providence that meets weekly with Mayor Alorza, although I'm obviously, I don't live in Providence. I was invited to do that, and I did that for probably a year and a half, and that was a great experience. And I've done and continue to do a lot of anti-racism training to keep myself informed and keep my own white privilege in check. So that's about it.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions? Thank you for your willingness to serve. Is Wafa Frage here? Okay. Karen Pringle. Karen, please tell us a little about yourself and what you can bring to the zoning board.
Hi, I'm Karen Pringle. I've been a resident in town for 8 years now with my family. I'm from Scotland and Edinburgh originally, and we came here for my husband's work. I have 2 small children. I'm a qualified British architect, and I have over 20 years in private practice in the UK, and the past 8 years I've been looking to build a practice here in the US. I work primarily in residential architecture. I have a passion for the built natural environment. I care deeply about this community that's become my home. And over and above the professional qualifications, I believe one of my biggest strengths is the ability to listen and empathize. And I would hope that I would bring a welcoming, friendly face to the board. I imagine this is quite stressful for residents coming before the board. So if I can offer that empathetic ear, then that's what I'll do.
Thank you. Any questions for? Okay. Thank you for your willingness to serve.
Thank you for your consideration.
Kara Pomerantz, please. Thank you for coming in.
Sure, thank you for having me.
Sure. Tell us a little about yourself and what you can bring to the zoning board.
So I grew up in Barrington, Cara Gastongwe, and George Finn's first year in office, I was a freshman. So I was really nice to see him honored tonight. But yeah, after Barrington, I went to architecture school. I hold a master's degree in architecture from Wentworth Institute of Technology, where I received the Unsung Hero and Volunteerism Award. And so I think, playing sports in Barrington, living in Barrington, and then going to college, volunteerism was a very big part of my life, and it's continued to be. Employment, I started at Payette Architects in Boston as an associate. I also worked for LLB Architects as an associate, and most recently, within the last year, I've opened up my own small practice for a full-service architecture firm. I've served on the AIA Rhode Island chapter as a director at large, and I've had lots of experience presenting and working with regulatory agencies, and couldn't think of a better way to give back to the community that I live in. So I moved back.
Thank you very much. Does anyone have any questions for Ms. Pomerantz? Thank you for your willingness to serve.
Thank you.
Jonathan Weinstein.
President Carroll, he withdrew.
He withdrew. Okay. Is Clark Westcott here? Mr. Westcott. Thank you. Please tell us a little about yourself.
So my name's Clark Westcott. Kara and I have a very similar story. We actually graduated high school together and grew up together. So I've been here my whole life, aside from maybe a 5 or 7 year stint in Boston where I went to Northeastern. Got a criminal justice degree only to come home and get into property management. And I now have my own small building and remodeling company in town. So I kind of have a good understanding of the way zoning works. I see what people go through with the choices that they make dependent on zoning. I think having the business that I have had for 9 years now gives me a good sort of in-depth look into having conversations about what's possible and what's not, and being very upfront and having difficult conversations with people about what's realistic and what can happen. And I get compliments constantly on my communication abilities, with customers, whether it's good, bad, or other. So I have a little family that we're raising in town here. I have a 2 and a 4-year-old, and no plans to leave. So feel like it'd be a great way to just sort of give back to the town that I love, and just happy to have the opportunity.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Westcott? Okay. Thank you for your willingness
Thanks,
to
guys.
serve. So I'm constantly pleased and honored by all the folks who are willing to give of their time and their talent to serve this community. And we are so fortunate to have really qualified folks to do it. Experts. So I make a motion to appoint, see if I've got the right, here it is. I would like to appoint Karen Pringle as the first alternate to the Zoning Board of Review with a term to expire on December 31, 25.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion to appoint Clark Westcott as a second alternate to the Zoning Board of Review with the term expire on December 31, 2024.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
That motion carries.
I would 31st, 2025.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All those should read the fine print. So thank you all so much. Thank you, Ms. Quinn, for your willingness to serve. The next item on our agenda is public comment. This is a chance for the public to make a 3-minute statement regarding, raise your hand. And then when you come forward, state your name and residency for the record. And if you could write on that form for Mary. Does anyone from the public want to be heard? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on. Next item on our agenda is the renewal of our liquor licenses. In Rhode Island, individual cities and towns are often the licensing body for the various liquor license holders. And in Barrington, we renew licenses on a yearly basis. We do it in a public hearing so that if anyone has something they'd like to say about it, they want us to consider, we certainly will consider that. But we're going to do a lot of these, so don't feel that you can't stand up and say that you want to be heard on a particular one. It's pretty rare that anybody does, so I'll try and go through them quickly and not keep you too long. I'm opening the public hearing into the Class A liquor license for Brickyard Wine and Spirits LLC. The applicant is Giovanni Ciccione, and Grapes and Grains Incorporated applicant Matt Amaral. Does anyone from the public wish to be heard on either of those? Okay, seeing none, I'm closing either of those. Do I hear then a motion to grant but not issue liquor license renewals, Class A, for Brickyard Wine and Spirits LLC and Grapes and Grains Incorporated, contingent upon compliance with all state and municipal statutes and that all proper paperwork has been filed applicable to liquor licenses?
So moved. Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
That motion carries. I'm going to open the public hearing into the Class B liquor license. And for this, we have the 286 Club, applicant Francis Camara, Stock Food Group Incorporated, doing business as East Bay Oyster Bar, James Harris Incorporated, doing business as Blue Water Bar and Grill, Brian Thim, and Miku Japanese Cuisine, Wen Chin Zhao. I'm opening the public hearing into the applications. Okay, seeing none, then I am closing the public hearing. Do I hear a motion to grant for Class B license type for 286 Club, Stock Food Group Incorporated, DBA East Bay Oyster Bar, Tong D Restaurant, Tyler Point Incorporated, DBA Blue Water Bar and Grill, and Miku Japanese Cuisine?
So moved.
I'm sorry, contingent upon compliance with all state and municipal statutes, and that all proper paperwork has been filed applicable to liquor licenses.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. The next set is Class B Limited. And I'm opening the public hearing to the Class B Limited liquor license applications for Leon's Kitchen Works, LLC, Pepperoni's Restaurant, DBA Pizzoni's, Nacho Mama's, Spaghetti Lane, LLC. Anyone from the public wish to be heard on those applications? Okay, closing the public hearing on those. Do I hear a motion to grant but not issue liquor license renewals for Class B Limited for Leon's Kitchen Works, LLC, Pepperoni's Restaurant, DBA Pizzoni's, and Spaghetti Lane, LLC, contingent upon compliance with all state and municipal statutes, and that all proper paperwork has been filed applicable to liquor licenses?
So move.
Motion's been made. Is there a second?
Although, before we second, I think we forgot Prince Ali's Kebab.
Oh, I didn't see that. Let me add Prince Ali's Kebab to that. I'm going to open the public hearing for Prince Ali's Kebab liquor license application.
It looks like it's in the next class, the issue on the agenda, if you look down. But I think it is a Class B.
It's a question of whether I use my glasses to see and they get fogged up, or I try and gut it out without the glasses. So anyone wish to be heard on Prince Ali's Kebab? Okay, seeing none, I'm closing the public hearing on that, and I will add Prince Ali's Kebab to that motion that I proposed. Does anyone want to make?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. And now for the Class D licenses. I'm opening the public hearing into the Class D licenses for American Legion Barrington Post 1 Incorporated, DBA American Legion Barrington Post 8. Barrington Democratic Club, Barrington Yacht Club, and the Rhode Island Country Club. Does anyone wish to be heard on the applications for those establishments? Okay, seeing none, I'm closing the public hearing. And I will ask if anyone wants to make a motion to grant but not issue liquor license renewals for Class D2 American Legion Barrington Post 1 Inc., DBA American Legion Barrington Post 8, Barrington Democratic Club, Barrington Yacht Club, and Rhode Island Country Club, contingent upon compliance with all state and municipal statutes, and that all proper paperwork has been filed applicable to the liquor licenses.
So move.
Second.
Okay. Next item on our agenda is the public hearing to discuss an act on acquiring two rights-of-way parcels between 7 and 11 Opeechee Drive and between 11 and 15 Bowden Avenue. Kim Jacobs is here. Kim.
Hi, thank you. Basically, in 2019, the town had a community resilience building workshop, and at that workshop, we identified addressing untreated stormwater that's channeled into our waterways, such as Barrington River, as a priority. So post that, we prioritized some of the stormwater management sites that needed to be retrofit. Two of them are the ones in question tonight. One is the 20-foot wide Opeechee Drive right of way. and the other is the 40-foot wide. It's the extension of Woodward Ave off of Bowdoin Ave that goes down to the shore. So both of those have been used for years as stormwater management sites for the town. And we were able to apply for a MRP action grant and include these two sites in it. So meeting the priority we set through our CRB workshop. When we went to do permitting, the CRMC, because they're within 200 feet of the waterway, the CRB permit kicks in, and when we went to apply, we realized, and we found out that basically, although those are commonly thought of as like right-of-ways, we determined that they actually still, it appears, retain ownership from the original owner of the plats. So one of the plats, the Martin, sorry, there's two plats. The first one, the Barrington Rivers plat from 97, that is up and where the Woodward Avenue paper street is, that's in question tonight. And that plat deeded over at that time, and we didn't find a paper trail showing us it was deeded over at some other point. So it remains a paper street. And according to the solicitor's office, they indicated that, by virtue of it being a paper street, everyone in that plat still has access. There's no conveyance of that property to them, but anyone who's a property owner still has access as an easement to that plat. Similarly, in the Martin plat, which is the one on Opeechee, that was specifically, it's a smaller 20-foot right of way down to the shore, and that was specifically listed for an easement for the property owners in that plat. We discussed it with the solicitor's office, and they indicated that they advised the town that prior to actually doing the improvements, which we got grant funding for on these two sites, it should be conveyed to the town as right-of-ways. It wouldn't change effectively the use by the property owners in those two plats. It would still be to the town at large as a public easement. Quite frankly, I don't think it would change for our CRMC permit. They probably just would have continued on being considered town property. But tonight we need to formalize that in order to move forward with the project. And the project, sorry, it's a little hazy to see, but the project is basically focused on water quality management on those sites. Right now, the way the existing BMP's controls are on that site, the water backs up. It can't treat when we have high rain events, and it doesn't allow for velocity. So there's a lot of erosion that occurs there. So we need to modify that, and we've come up with some designs, and we have been in touch with some of the neighbors who've been interested or seen us out there, and we've talked to them about this. And then everyone in both plats received a letter talking about this, but also in the letter, it showed them, their design, the design for their respective mention, especially for the Opeechee right away. The shoreline access will be maintained. That will not be impacted because, of course, in town, shoreline access is a huge priority for us. We want access to.
This is to accept these undeveloped rights of way. Who is the current owner?
Well, from what
unknown?
From what we understand, but maybe you want to pick this up, it's still the original, but no one to our knowledge has ever paid, done improvements on the sites other than town or paid taxes on the sites, at least when we look through the documents. So it's kind of, they've been there, left for the public to use or a limited public within those plats, but no improvements or no taxes to our knowledge has been paid.
I concur. It had to always was that it was a public right of way. So.
Right. And we did check. There's no conveyance to any of the properties on either side of either right of way. We did go back and look at that. There's been no conveyance to anyone else. And because it's my understanding, and I've written down but because the easement exists there, I don't think there could be a conveyance to a
No, it's just already, the easement is there. It's called by prescription, as opposed to like a written easement that you record. It's a prescriptive, an unwritten easement.
And I'll just, for the, some folks who are in support of us moving forward, this, the town acquiring the property and doing the improvements. This is from some of the neighbors in the, first, the upper one, the Woodward Avenue right-of-way off of Bowdoin. And this is signed by the property, the adjacent two property owners and the two directly across the street from the right-of-way, as well as one other person. And I can give this to Mary to include.
Yes, please. Thanks. Any questions for Kim? Okay. This is a public hearing, so would anyone from the public like to be heard on this? Okay, seeing none. Thank you, Kim. I'll close the public hearing and open it up to the council. Does anyone have any comments or thoughts on this? Obviously, this is one of the things we're trying to do is to improve water quality. This would allow us to do that, and I'm glad to see with another grant, foot-wide parcel down to Barrington River from Opeechee Drive, and a 40-foot wide paper street of Woodward Avenue from Bowdoin Avenue to the Barrington River.
So move.
Motion's made. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion?
Maybe just one more question for Ms. Jacobs. Thanks for the summary earlier. So I just want to confirm if I understand correctly. So there are no disputes with respect to, even though it's a bit unknown in terms of ownership, there are no disputes with respect to ownership that we should be concerned about.
We did not discover and as I said, a letter that Mary has a copy of went out to each respective group of plat owners, lot owners within the plats, telling about tonight, describing the process that we've gone through, describing what's going to happen, and no one has come forward to my knowledge.
Okay, thank you. And my second question, sorry. We're not aware of any concerns with respect to the work that the town needs to do as it would affect the abutting properties or anywhere else in that neighborhood.
No, the work is limited to the lot. There's one little part that I've actually discussed with one of the abutting neighbors where we may have to grade a tiny bit onto their lawn only with their permission, of course. But no, it's all contained. All the work, as you can kind of see, is contained within the right-of-ways.
Great, thank you. That sounds good.
Thank you. Oh, please.
Just to clarify, this is for the solicitor. Given that Mr. raised the issue, you don't see any need for a declaratory judgment or any kind of legal action by the town before we take this? Right.
This is more in the way of just housekeeping.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Thank you, Kim. Next item on our agenda is a presentation on the Day of Caring, and Denise Alves will take us through that. This was another great success.
Sorry about that. Thank you for having us. We, Denise and I and the rest of the Day of Caring team wanted to come and just share some highlights from what has become an annual event. And you can go to the next slide. We're celebrating 4 years of this annual event that really draws in all kinds of people from just members of our community, lots of folks here at Town Hall, the Y, houses of worship, all kinds of people. Mike gives us a pep talk here just before we go out. I think you've done that every single year, and we're certainly thankful for that. So we've been doing this for 4 years. The next image, most of which our residential sites for people in town here who are unable to do minor to some pretty large scale repair projects, yard work, upkeep, all kinds of things. And that's been an amazing part of our Day of Caring experience. This is a conservative estimate, but in terms of individual projects, we've completed over 100, well over 100. Some are more extensive than others. And in the residential sites, one of the greatest parts of what we do is that we interact a lot with the property owner. And they are so thrilled to have people from the community coming in, taking notice, helping out, and we get to sit and talk ahead of the event, as we plan, as we get permissions, the day of the event, and then we follow up afterwards. And it's just unbelievable to hear the feedback from people who not only appreciate the work that's done, but really appreciate being noticed by the leadership of their town and residents. It's been an adaptive and resilient program in the sense that this is an image from last year's Day of Caring, right in the middle of COVID. And I can speak to this from what I do in my professional life. Lots of outreach programs during COVID weren't prepared for changing, hands-on, face-to-face kinds of programs weren't prepared for adapting and sort of weathering the storm that was COVID. And a lot of them have just stopped activity, and many of those even now are not back up and running, and several that we interact with at the church I serve are probably not going to come back. Day of Caring didn't even think about that. We adapted. We did a huge community food drive. We held to the same date that we had done every other year, and I think it's just a testimony to the planning team. And I'm very thankful for everyone, for Denise, Jean, Phil, Deborah, some of the folks that are here, all the leaders of the houses of worship, Anthony from the Y. It's an unbelievable group of people. We've mobilized over 300 volunteers, and again, that's individuals over those 4 years. That was one of our larger groups, obviously pre-COVID. Very, very thankful to be a part of it and be able to do it each year. And the ulterior motive, one of the real reasons we're here tonight is to thank our town manager, Jim Cunha, because half years ago in a Barrington support coalition meeting, I think your exact words were, wouldn't it be great if we had something that would bring our whole community together to do projects and good things for our residents in need. And we didn't know what that would look like that day, but you and I spoke, I think, via email several weeks later, and your idea, you had the vision for this, you inspired us to do this, and we wanted to take a moment just to thank you for starting what has become an annual event. Denise has a...
It will remind you of your most recent thoughts. Oh. Yes, it was.
It's a Barrington brick.
Actually,
No,
that
it's-
is a Barrington brick. Oh.
That's a
It is
real...
Barrington brick.
Thanks a lot. And one more again, thank you all for taking a few minutes to allow us to speak. Our 5th annual Day of Caring will happen on Monday, October 10th next year. And again, we're just super grateful for, you said it earlier, Mike, I think you say it a lot, just what a great community this is. And we're thankful, and we feel fortunate to be able to help plan and lead something like this that's really become an annual event. And again, thanks so much, Jim. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. The leadership in doing this every year, and of course, Jim starting this, and even before that, Jim took some existing groups and pulled them together into the community. And it's just been wonderful. One of the things we talk about a lot is resilience. And this is kind of an example of building resilience.